Hello and welcome to my channel. So I made a Lando Norris inspired crochet blanket and this video is coming to fruition. I did start it when I started working on this blanket and kind of fell off. So this video coming to fruition is like purely because of the one TikTok support when I uploaded this TikTok.
Yes, I am.
To the platform because I just had like a really good day where I was feeling confident and decided I was going to post about this blanket. I am so proud of it. It was a huge accomplishment and I have since made others, which I will talk about later in this video, but the support on that video was insane. Instantly there was comments asking for a pattern and I really wanted to make sure that putting out a pattern I would have something that people could go back to and actually see because I'm a visual learner, and also because I did start vlogging this process, I wanted to finish it, which is also so nice because I have not sat in front of a camera to make a sit-down YouTube video in a very long time. A year ago, I was going through the journey to try to fall back in love with YouTube, and I feel so inspired to create content not only here back on YouTube, but also on TikTok. So that is really awesome, and I have anybody who's seen that TikTok, commented, liked it to thank, and if you haven't even seen that and you're just here otherwise, thank you so much. Before we get into everything, I wanted to talk about this blanket a little bit. It is my baby. During the late half of the 2023 season, I started making a crochet version of the McLaren 2023 car and also made 2 blankets for my brother and for my parents for Christmas. But when I sit down and watch a race, I have ADHD, I need to do something with my hands, so I knew going into the season I wanted something that I could work on whenever, but also watching races. And this was born. So I definitely want to show it off so that you can see the full thing and all the details that went into it, because I'm really proud of it. I feel like a toddlers and tiara mom kind of being like sparkle baby thing, that I want like this to sparkle. I look at my crochet very much like a painter looks at paintings. Like, this is my form of art. I'm really happy to share the pattern. There was like moments in my mind that I knew that if I put this out that people might want the pattern. I was somewhat iffy because I'm like, I do view this as like my art, but artists sell prints and I'm kind of viewing it that way. I don't feel like I could sell this pattern because it has IP on it. So it's gonna be a free pattern. It will be in the description box down below, as will the one for the 2 other blankets that I made / half made. So I made a Max Verstappen blanket for my brother. I'm hoping that he will lend it back to me so that I can make some TikToks on it, because all I have right now is this one photo. And then I am currently working on a Charles Leclerc inspired blanket. So little details that are already on it are like his logo, and then I'm working on the Ferrari crest right now. Once these are done, I think the next project I'm gonna work on, and I've already started planning for a while, has been a McLaren Constructors Champions cardigan. So yeah, I'm rambling, but the details on the blanket. The design. Obviously the main inspiration was Lando's 2024 helmet. When he dropped the helmet reveal, I think everyone was shocked and excited by the change. It was a big change, and when I saw it, I instantly knew I had to do something with it. I absolutely adore the new helmet design. I hope it continues into the 2025 season, but we will see. In creating this blanket, I wanted to put other things into it, and kind of now with the series of blankets, they're all inspired by the driver's helmets but by themselves as well. So I knew I wanted to include things that meant something to Lando fans, to Lando in the blanket. From that picture of the Max Verstappen one, like again, that's based off of his helmet, and I made sure to include the orange one that isn't actually on his helmet and things like that, so that it's like an embodiment, at least how I view the drivers. So my Lando blanket, which you are about to see, has all the fringe on it, but the Max Verstappen one I made has clean edges. I tried to, in every single stitch, think things out. With my Charles Leclerc one, the main thing you're gonna see is a large Ferrari symbol and then the Monegasque flag going through, and I tried to match the colors to his helmet because his general helmet design is very clean. That one's also gonna have sewn in fringe edges. Like instead of having the fringe, they're gonna be clean, because I just see him as more of like a posh person, and not in a, like, I hope no one takes that in a bad sense. none of that is what I'm trying to do here. But let's look at the specific details on the Lando blanket. I have it out on my floor, so sorry that I have Christmas decorations that I need put away. The best space and is close to my windows for this purpose. Because I do live in Canada and it's like 1:30, we are gonna start losing light in a matter of hours. I'm trying to film everything I need to for this video. Probably the day that it's up is the day that I'm filming. I'm trying so hard. So the biggest thing is the squiggles from his helmet. And I loved how he had his name hidden in them. So I made that the center point, and so it's completely centered. And then the chrome 4 that's on the top, I couldn't find like chrome yarn, so I used white, and then I actually used hair tinsel, silver hair tinsel. I don't think it's picking up on camera, but there is silver hair tinsel in there to try to replicate. Earlier when I was saying that I learned along the way, you can see some ends that still need to be fixed. This was all learning space. I was learning the technique. It looks much better up there. So that's the top of his helmet that I've included. I have the quadrant logo, which as I'm filming this, they've shown new logos, but this is the 2024 blanket when he was second in the Drivers' Championship. Quadrant logo, the McLaren logo. Over here is the Earth from his like worldwide merch collection, because I absolutely loved it and I loved that it was like a drawing. Moving up, we have the actual LN4 logo, the F1 logo, and then when I saw a photo of his boots at the start of the season, I knew that I had to take how he had 4 like in the same style written out on them, so I put that up there. And as I said, this one has like all the fringe, so in terms of making the blanket, you can see that I actually tied on with the color that's going to be used first, which I think made the fringe look really cool. And I kept the fringe because that just felt very easygoing. Not that Max or Charles aren't, but like, I hope you know what I mean. It just like fits the vibe. So everything was about fitting the vibe. So for this blanket, I only used 3 colors. And then the second one I made was the Max Verstappen blanket, which had so much more. The Ferrari one I'm making right now uses, I think, 5 or 6. It's just a lot of shades of red, but even like for the crest on the actual Ferrari logo, I'm using a different red than I do for the Monegasque flag. So I'm trying to think of all those little details, including like any white borders or lines that I have on both the Max blanket and the Charles blanket. If it's like a border piece, I don't want it to blend into the regular white necessarily. So when you look up close, it's a white with a gold tinsel. So we have the Monegasque flag. Don't mind these little poke outs, they will be fixed. These are each, I believe, 32 stitches. And then there is a white line technically on either side. I think you can kind of tell it's better in person. There is gold in there. And then the black for the Ferrari has gold. Both of those are actually how the yarn is. I have now found good special yarns, but I carry that up. I will show that technique if possible, because basically I carry the yarn up and stitch over one and then bring it through each time, so that on the back the only sew-ins are these when I'm adding and dropping here, and this gold follows through all out. With the Ferrari crest, when I get to the top, this red will not be the same red that's used in the Italian flag, but I'm gonna have Charles's 16 in his like numbering style there, which is like done like the Monegasque flag, and the same red that's on the Ferrari emblem is going to be used for that. Anyways, those are all the little details. So yeah, so those are all the details that are in the Lando Norris blanket. Hopefully you guys like how it turned out, and again, huge thank you to all the support that has been coming my way on this project. I cannot like describe how amazing it is, because yeah, I've been re-inspired to come back and make videos, which is something I've been doing for so long and I really enjoy. So now that you've seen the details and the other blankets that I have made, let's get into the little tutorial. Just preface, this is me trying my absolute hardest. When it comes to crochet, I am mostly self-taught. I learned how to crochet when I was really little, picked it back up a couple of years ago, and I try to just figure it out. So I'm going to describe how I do it and my process as much as possible. If there's anything that is confusing, please comment down below, or if you don't want to comment publicly, any questions that you have, you can DM me on Instagram and I try my best to answer the DMs. I will try my absolute hardest to make sure that everyone who wants to make a blanket has it turn out well. Also, if you do make it, please send me photos or tag me on social media if you post it and stuff. Would love that. I guess I'm kind of turning into the F1 blanket girl. Further ado, let's get to the actual tutorial. Before we begin, I learned as I went making this blanket. So I did learn a lot from other YouTube videos. So the type of crochet that this is, right side only, tapestry crochet, or Afghan crochet. There is much better creators and people who their entire thing on social media is showing you how to crochet and make these things. 100% suggest watching their videos, even if this is like my video is a good starting point, and while you're crocheting you want to watch a couple of those to get other hints, because I'm going to show you what works for me. What works for me and what I do won't necessarily work for you. And when I did my research, there was so many videos out there, so many different techniques, and I kind of just like took it, learned, and found what worked for me, which is what I'm sharing with you. I just wanted to put that out there, but let's get into the actual tutorial. What you're gonna need is a crochet hook. This is one of the Prim ergonomic ones in the 5mm, and then some scissors. I use the Loops and Threads special yarn scissors, love them. And then your yarn of colors of choice, so how many colors you need. I use the Loops and Threads soft and shiny acrylic. It's still acrylic, it is cheap, but also very beautiful and very soft. If you want, you can get some stitch markers. They're not necessary. I only use them for the first couple of rows as I got the base for things. You're gonna need a tapestry needle or a yarn needle to sew in ends. Completely optional. This is actually just like a tip. I got this little garbage can that's technically for a car. It goes into a cup holder, but I used it for trimming ends and I just toss them in there and it keeps things so nice and clean. For the purposes of making this tutorial, I'm gonna just make a 30 stitch by 30 stitch square of Lando Norris's LN4 logo, because I think it will have enough of how I do a couple of different techniques so that I can put everything in this one video for you and do as best possible. So to make the actual wrap, I designed it on a website called Floss Cross, which is technically for making cross stitch, but I found it easy for me to read, and also they let you make free designs, so that's how I made them. I just quickly made the LN4 logo, so I actually have it up right there. Not all the yarn from the working on my Ferrari blanket. I wanted to quickly show you how I organize the actual chart and how I read it so that you can do this. I'm using a MacBook. I'm not sure on a Windows computer how well this will work, but if in PDF Viewer, if you can draw like a line over each row, I'm sure that will work out. But I'm going to show you guys how I read and work with a pattern. I don't think for a project as big as the blanket, printing it out, the graph will work unless you're able to print it larger than a piece of paper, because to count the stitches, sometimes you have to zoom in quite big. If I'm able to find another way to put out this pattern, I will, but I like making this video and then putting out the pattern for me has been not rushed, but I'm trying to do it quickly so that it could get in people's hands, especially with the potential of TikTok shutting down. So let's look at how I actually read the graph. Okay, so this is my cross stitch chart slash what I use to do the actual crochet. So when reading it, you're gonna start from the right bottom and you go over once you have your foundation chains and you're starting the actual designs of the project. So for this one, I would do 3 rows of just my base color. Really, you can pick any color you want. Because your foundation is going to be one of a color and then back, you could just start with putting that extra row here. If you're making this Lando Norris blanket, you can just start regularly, but you always start from the right and read leftwards. And since you're always working on the right side, like the good side, and you're tying on and tying off, if you choose to do that. And also you start at the bottom and move upwards to create the image. To actually block off, what I do is I keep like the pattern up on my laptop and I just read from my laptop, but I just add a line in, drag it out so that it is just above the length of the project. For some reason mine was green. Anyways, and then I change it to black. You can adjust the thickness of the line depending on what you want. Say I just crocheted this line and then I'm going to do the line above, and then when I finish that one, I just move the little bar up and it blocks out that this is done, and that this is what I'm focusing on, is the one right above my line. For the whole blanket, I found this like a very easy way. You can save the file, or I have found that even if it's closed, when I go back to it on my MacBook, the line's still there, and just like every time I complete a line, I cover it and I move up. By having it up on your computer, you can zoom in and zoom out as you need. So like if I want to like double check how many stitches, especially for these base rows where I'm starting and like I need to count the 4 over and then how many here, because I find once you start a design, like I know that, say just finish this one, I know that I'm gonna add the color, like I'm gonna start my second color 1 over, tie off 1 over, kind of a thing. Hopefully that makes sense. I really hope so. But whatever works for you, if you want to count out every stitch, every row, this allows you to do so. I just find that once I have a design going, I can feed off of things and work around, but I know everyone's brain doesn't work the same way, and something else might work best for you. That is how I actually read the chart. And now we can get into the techniques. Guys, filming a tutorial is hard. This took so long to figure out how to set up to film for you guys. So I have my yarn, and to begin, I need to make a slip knot. So I'm gonna push over, essentially folding over, pull this underneath, and put my crochet hook through and pull to make my slip knot. If I was crocheting on my own, my yarn ball would be elsewhere for better management, but for the purpose of this video, it's gonna be right there. I can show you guys a little clip of how I set up, because I usually crochet on the couch. As I say, usually watching races. So the next thing is gonna be to chain. So I yarn over and pull through, over and pull 2 chains. For my mini project, I'm going to do, since my design is 30 by 30, I need to have 30 regular chains, but for this project, you're always gonna have what I've always known as being a border stitch. So that first chain that I do, I'm gonna think of that as my border stitch. Either I can count 30, add 32 for my length, or don't count that towards my counting. If you wanted, as you went, you could put stitch markers or bobby pins for like every 10 stitches. This will just make it easier when you go to make the design to know. But I'm gonna quickly chain what I need and I'll come back to you guys. So now I have my chain. Actually, I did 33 stitches because I have both my border stitches, the 30 that I need, but to finish my foundation, I added an extra one so that I can, when I pull over, I'm gonna skip this first loop to finish my foundation. Now there's 2 different ways that you can do the foundation. You can either go in regularly through the stitch, like I would be looking at my chain, going underneath this little loop here, yarning over, pulling through, and finishing up the single crochet and doing that all the way along, and then tying off at this tie-off point. Another way that I've learned through this project and I used for both the Max and the Charles blanket is when you're looking at the thing, put it upside down and going through this little bump. So you'll see like the 2 things and you go through this bump. It just makes it look cleaner. It's completely up to you. I'll come back once I have this done. Now I have single crocheted all the way along and I have the startings of my square. I have that border stitch here. Instead of doing a normal crochet where I would do what's called yarning over, of going through and then yarn over, pull through and complete the stitch, I'm going to go through my little bump and I'm going to yarn under just by grabbing and pulling through to complete the stitch. I tend to tighten it up here. This just keeps the edges nice. And then pulling through and pull through and tighten. And then I can just trim in this loop here, and I have that all finished. And we have our foundation. If you were doing the blanket or a blanket, obviously this would be much longer, but for the purposes of just this tutorial, my next row is just gonna be the green again, because I'm gonna keep these 2 rows as rows instead of being a foundation. This is just so that I can get to the tutorial faster, honestly. So I'm gonna do that by taking my crochet hook, and I'm gonna do another one of those slip knots. So I have my loop, I have it all lassoed, ready to go. And now that this is on my yarn, I'm going to go to my border stitch, push through, pull this over so that I can essentially yarn under and complete the stitch. And now I can single crochet as normal and do the same tie off that I did here. So I finished that other row, so now I'm technically at 3 rows. I have started my next row, and this is the one that's gonna have the color for the first time, so I brought in my second color. If you look at the actual picture of what I'm doing, I'm gonna have 7 stitches, and then the 8th is gonna be black. And I always bring in my black 2 stitches left. So I have 3 that I've already done, a 4th if you include the border stitch, but I'm not going to include that. So I have 3, so I have 4 more until I need to do a color change and my first color change. So basically, so I can do 2 normal single crochets because I'm going to bring in that black with 2 stitches left of my green. To add the new color, what I do is I take it, make sure that there's a little bit of a tail, and I'm going to just slot it behind this, like with my green up, slot it behind there, kind of like that. I hope this makes sense. And then I'm gonna do 1 single crochet, which is just going to somewhat lock this black in. So if you see, it's now there. This gives me something now that when I finish the blanket, I'm gonna have to tie in, but I want to change that black color. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start my stitch as normal, go in, yarn over, pull through. But with my working yarn in the green, I'm gonna pull this over and hold it with my finger so that now this is in the same spot. And I'm going to yarn over and finish my stitch as normal. Now, what the working yarn has switched to the black. So to keep things from tangling too much, I'm going to move my green over so that now the green kind of just lays naturally and there's no tangles. That is super important while you do this. Please make sure that your yarns don't tangle, especially if you're using more than 2 colors. But now I can just make sure that this non-working yarn, or I nickname it dead yarn, I'm going to hold it to the project from the back, and I can single crochet as normal. But from the chart design, I only need 1 stitch. So in this case, I'm gonna go in and do the same thing for the color change, get my 2 loops on, pull over, go back to my green, and pull through. Also, looking at the chart, there's no other black in this row. So what I'm gonna do, if I am done with a color and I want to tie it off, what I do is hold it the same way, but I'm gonna do 1 full single crochet with my green to tie in, and I can crochet as normal now and go all the way to the end. And when I get to the end, I'll show you what I'm going to do with that black. So I have finished that row. I have trimmed off my green, finished as normal. Now, if I was actually doing this, and especially with the blanket, keeping this attached would be really annoying to finish off that row, but for the purposes of this video, I'm doing it. What I do is I pull it out to leave a very significant tail when I have only done 1 stitch, and I know from my pattern I only have a couple stitches on the next one. So I'm gonna trim this off with this super long tail, and since I'm carrying this back over I'm going to put it on tapestry needle, and I'm going to find the anchor stitch, which is just going to be this little like line right, just this little line right here, something to anchor it, and I'm going to pull through to the other side of this stitch and then up that little stitch, that little humpy thing underneath the other working stitches. This way, when I'm crocheting along, this is already where I need it to be. So on my next row, I know that I'm starting from the same point here. I'm not going one over, I'm not going one further, which is why I brought it to there. Basically, I do this to, first of all, save yarn, because then there's like very little like non-used yarn. Because if I put just that one stitch and had a tail this side, a tail this side, that would be a lot of work to sew in, and also would cause bulk, because when I sew this in, I'm going to put it through the anchor stitch and then bring this back. If I had to put it through the anchor stitch and bring that back and then trim them, there would be so much bulk. So I just do this as like a way to save yarn, save work, save time, and create less bulk, which means that also there's less likely to peak around the design, which is something that fixes with like blocking out your project at the end, but that's just how I do it. And so the next time, I don't have to bring this in early, when I can single crochet up to this point and then just join this as normal. Also, sometimes, same thing in this, I could have kept this tail really long so that I could have moved this up. I will show you how I tie off when I'm not bringing this over to create like for the normal tail. Basically, it's the same thing as like 2 before and then 2, like I'll single crochet 2, move it aside, and then normal crochet to make a tail, but I'll still show it to you. Okay, so I'm on the next row, but quickly to show you, so I literally crocheted as normal, hit the point where I'm going to do that color change. With the 2 loops, I can still fold it over even though I haven't carried anything here. And that bit that came over, I can just join as normal. I don't have to move my balls or my skeins of yarn. And I can push this back, and since I'm doing 2 stitches this time, I just single crochet and then do my color change as normal. Now I'm gonna do this carryover again because I still have quite a bit of yarn, and my next one, still same thing, I won't be transferring, like I won't start that L. So I'm gonna single crochet and then move it, push it back, single crochet to lock that no longer in my stuff. If I were to tie off, because I do want to show you how I would fully tie off, I would do that first single crochet to lock in. I would still be carrying this new color, and I'm going to go in, make sure it's above my hook instead of under my hook, and I'm going to single crochet again and then go back in, making sure it's under my hook, not above this time, because I want to stop carrying it. And then I usually crochet a couple of them, and then I would trim this to a sewable size, and usually it would be attached to the ball. And then I would have my ends just to sew in later, and I can continue as normal. On the blanket, when I had large sections and I didn't want to carry the yarn through the large sections, usually like over 22 stitches, I would do this. I would drop the yarn and then trim it and then re-add it using this adding method. Otherwise, the first time you hit the second color, add that yarn and carry it all the way through the design until you don't need that color anymore. And sometimes you start with one color and end with another, so you would just drop, like if my last stitches here were black, I would drop the green early so that I can sew that in and tie off with the black, if that makes sense. I guess the only like really last thing to show you is, say I got to the point where I have the N and now I'm going to the L, I would count my stitches in between. So in this case, we're pretending, but there's 4, so I would have my 3, and I would just, and I've carried that black through by just holding it back here. Don't pull too much tension on this. You just want it to be very natural. And then I would just do the same color thing. So have the 2, pull this over. This is right here, yay! And pull it in. Fix my yarns because we're pretending this is on the ball, and I could do the number of stitches I need for the L and so forth. And that's just how you change colors, and you just count. Crochet is a lot of counting, and yeah, that is how you make this. I guess I don't have to fully make a full project to show you how. That's the basics. If you watched like my description bit with the Ferrari blanket, I'm just going to show you how it looks, because you can add yarn and take away to straight up change colors, which if you see on like here, I'm going from the white to the red on the Monegasque flag, or even for the emblem, like I don't need to carry the black or the yellow. Like all of this is carried through. This is the back of the project. So I'm picking up the red that I need for the Monegasque flag, pick it up 2 stitches before, then I'm working as normal and dropping the yellow 2 stitches after, and dropping my black then 2 stitches after, if that makes sense. And then that like string carry is best represented here with this line. Like it's a straight line all the way up, and it's only ever 1 stitch, except for when it was interrupted by this Ferrari writing. So I just use a really long piece, and every time I will do that carry over 1 and continue, and it just means that at the same time I'm doing a color change between the Monegasque flag and the outside, I only have the Monegasque, like those 2 colors to sew in. This one just carries. Again, I'm not the best at tutorials, but that's basically what I do, and you just work up each row and then sew in your ends by always making sure that you do an anchor. I will quickly show you how I sew in my ends. I know everyone has a different way. Sometimes I use a little bit of like liquid stitch if I'm worried about a certain color, or if it's really too bulky in an area, because sometimes I'm like adding 2 colors like right after each other and it can be quite bulky. Otherwise I do sew in my ends, so I'll quickly show you how I do that, but again, everyone does it differently. That's how I add colors and take them away when I no longer need them. I don't like sewing in ends. I find it very tedious. If you do not like sewing in ends, add it the first time you use that new color, and if it's at all, like, especially for the Lando blanket, most of the time you're working with 2 colors, just carry it all the way across. And whenever you don't need it anymore, drop that color you don't need at all, because it'll also help with tension. I found in large areas where like I would have a black design and like go 30 stitches, but have like a huge palm-sized area, that bit doesn't have fully the same tension because it doesn't have that bit holding it together. Basically that is that. I'm going to quickly show you how to sew in ends. Okay, quickly to sew in the end, I have my tail. I am going to thread it onto my needle, and then literally I keep it in the row that it's from, and I just find a stitch to anchor it into. Run the needle along those little bumpies, just trying to make sure it's the back ones, so that when I pull through, that is now locked. I can trim this and not visible from the front. So this can now just be trimmed off. That's not going anywhere. When I do this, it doesn't change the fabric. This can just be trimmed and it is good to go, because I find sewing in ends to be painful. My best advice is to do it as you go, kind of like cleaning your kitchen as you go, and then it's not as tedious of a task. So this is my yarn for the Ferrari blanket. I have them kind of in order how I use them. Side note, pull the yarn out from the middle. I'm sure if you're a crocheter, you know that. It just makes things so much easier than going from the outside. And that is how I made my blanket, just following those steps and those processes. Again, if you have any questions, comment them down below or DM me on Instagram, or even find me on Twitter. Whatever way works best for you. As I said at the start of this video, I actually started vlogging this entire process because I was so inspired to make the blanket, and then I just kind of stopped. So I wanted to share the little bit of the vlogging process because it shows kind of my process. Making this blanket was really me learning a lot. Again, I had to teach myself a lot of the things. Something I did find when making this blanket was I actually was once a week in the beginning stages going to a fiber arts circle here in my city, which unfortunately has fallen off the face of the earth, but it was really great because there was an instructor who taught me a lot about holding my tension and different techniques I could use. So my blanket, I feel like I can see the evolution from the start to when I knew what I was doing and now into the later blankets, which is really fun. There's a lot of footage I know I did film in the early parts of making this blanket that I don't have because I've had so many computer issues and so many SD card issues and things got lost. So I've put together what I have. Please enjoy the little chaotic vlog I have. Welcome to day 2 of this project. It is early in the morning. I was up till like 11 last night because when I got home from getting the actual yarn for this project, I realized that the grid that I had made, which was 100 by 120, was not going to be big enough based on the other blankets I've made. So I had to make it 180 by 200. Or 210 or something. I made it bigger. And then I started crocheting. And I've gotten so many rows in and I was getting really lost with what was going on because I tried doing mosaic crochet. Realized that is not gonna work. So I spent a couple hours last night, or I spent a lot of time watching some videos on like corner to corner crochet, tapestry crochet, which is learned what a graphghan is, and basically what I have done is not working because of the rules for mosaic crochet. It just doesn't line up. So don't know where my laptop went. We need to find that. So basically through corner to corner crochet and graphghan crochet, you can make any design. You can make any grid or pixel design into a crochet pattern. Then there's a bunch of different ways to actually do it with like tie off, right side, start, different ways to incorporate the different colors. In the end, it looks like I'm going to be doing a mixture of all things. I was hoping to get like a couple of rows done before I dived into how I was doing it. I'm going to do that again and before I show you guys anything, but we're gonna start working now on all of this and just see how this is going to work out from our actual graph into a blanket. It's gonna be hard, but I'm ready. I also learned in all of this that for the foundation rows for this type crochet, and I guess a lot of other crochet, I'm like pretty much self-taught. My mom taught me when I was little and then I just ran with it. So I don't really work off of too many actual patterns for crochet, and when I know what works for me and I adjust everything. So I never learned about what a the foundation single crochet and stuff like that was. I've always just chained. I did that to start this blanket and I don't want to waste yarn, so maybe in the future I would try that type of foundation row, but for now I'm just going to take out the couple of rows that I've done, try to use that yarn, but keep the chain and first row of just regular starting for my crochet blanket, and we're gonna go from there. Anyways, that is the update for now. I'm gonna get started on taking all of that apart and doing all of that right now. Also, secondary row wearing F1 clothes because it's exciting that we're working on this. Welcome to day 3. I look so tired because I did stay up till like midnight crocheting last night. Second night in a row, and I have to be up at like 7:15 for work every morning, so I haven't had much sleep. But I want to show you guys the update. So I did figure out my techniques. I didn't do much vlog yesterday of this project or anything because I wanted to figure out what I was doing, made some mistakes, fixed them so that I knew what I was doing before I showed you guys anything more. But I'll show you what we have so far. So this is what we have. It's kind of like a scarf right now, but we have the startings of the Quadrant logo right there and the start of the McLaren logo. This is just rolled up, but there is this line just needs to finish like that. It's coming together so far. It's not that long. I need to compare it to another actual blanket. I did 180 stitches, or like my chain was 183 because one to carry over, and then I did do a bordering stitch on each side. It's not as wide as I thought. I just want to grab the blanket that actually sits on my bed, and maybe I'm overreacting because like it is the exact same length. So with the tassels longer. So I think that we're okay. Also, the more I look at the green, I'm fine with it because I know it's not the exact same color as this helmet, because this helmet's like a mix of the fluoro yellow, fluoro green. I think it's fine though. Hopefully it's fine. Anyways, I just wanted to give you guys that update while it's bright out. I have to get back to work, but that is the startings of our blanket. It's been forever since an update, so I wanted to give you guys one right now. I have done a lot of the blanket, and you would have seen in B-roll that I had to fix the pattern because what I have right now is about halfway, and it is definitely not what should be halfway. So I was thankfully able to adjust the pattern before I got too far into actually doing what will be the actual center, and I'll show you guys now. This is what we have so far. So as you can see, everything kind of like squished. If I were to do this again, I would do a half double crochet. There is a lot of bits sticking out. Those are going to be fixed. I just need to poke them through the back. And I think I'm going to get some liquid stitch so that when these little bits get poked through the back, like especially these darker bits, they don't show through and they stay on the back. For the 4, I couldn't find a silver yarn, so I did it in white and used hair tinsel actually to go through it. But this is what we have so far. I am really happy with it. Also, don't mind the fact that I have some eyelashes on the side and none on this. I'm missing a fingernail. We're just working away. I had some time in between actual work meetings, so I wanted to give you that update. But it's going well. I think when I'm done this blanket, because it's been like 3 weeks of working on it, I might try to make a different driver's helmet. So we'll see. Anyways, that is the update. Come back to you guys next update. Okay, and that's when I stopped filming, but you've seen the finished blanket. It is actually here, it is done. I can hold it. I finished it beginning of August, I believe, around then. And then I like to think it was my little like lucky charm throughout the last half of the season. I know things were kind of crazy and didn't always go how I necessarily would have wanted to keep my stress levels down as a McLaren fan and specifically a Lando supporter, but I can't wait to go into 2025 with this buddy as my race day special. It does sit on my couch 24/7. I love this thing so much, and I've fallen in love with this form of crochet. I made a Max blanket. I'm making a Charles one right now. I'm like just over halfway on that Charles blanket, and I'm so excited to see it fully done. And yeah, this is my art. Every time I like talked about making this video or putting it on TikTok, Twitter, Threads, different places, I kept telling my parents, I was like, I do want to make more. How cool would it be to like gift this? Because I know people like gift paintings, and if I had the McLaren, if you want one quadrant, I will make you a special one. Like even like Max Futrell, Lando's best friend, I watch his streams all the time. They're actually so calming. I mentioned this at the start of the video. I have ADHD, so when I work from home, I sometimes come and work on my couch and on my TV that's right there, watch Max Futrell's streams. I might not play Tarkov and stuff, but just like watching and listening is so calming. But like a month ago, I had a complete epiphany for like a Max Futrell themed blanket that I might just design for fun. So the description box, as I design more blankets, might just keep getting more graphs for what you could do. Also, there's like some TikTok creative, like Noah Elizabeth on TikTok. Girl, if you want one, I would love to gift it to you. And yeah, a dream would be to like gift it to anyone like big F1 related. I would make a blanket in a second. These are my art. I'm rambling. I don't want to drag this video out too long. Thank you again so much for watching. If you supported me on TikTok, thank you for supporting me and giving me the inspiration to keep going, I will be continuing to make F1 content here on YouTube. I actually have the vlogs from the 2024 Canadian Grand Prix. I have like a prep video where I did some F1 crafting, and I have vlogs from all 3 days. I will be going back this year, vlogging again, and yeah, I'm now like, let's make F1 content. So you might see a lot more of me on TikTok because I am Canadian, so it's gonna continue even if it does get banned in the US for me. But if you want to support me in this journey, you can also follow me on Instagram, Threads. I don't really use Twitter, but maybe we'll start. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.